Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrew, and today I'm going to be doing the Get to Know My Taste book tag, which was created by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes and Mari from My Name is Mary Naz, which I think this is just so great because I love that there's this resource we can all be using to try and find people with our similar tastes. Let's find our people who we can trust, like for our recommendations and what we actually want to be reading. I'm here to share my experience, my thoughts, my opinions, and my taste, which I'm very hopeful to find somebody else who is constantly making content and we can just, I would absolutely love to find someone to get recommendations from. Let's start with the first question, which is, how do you rate your books? Do you use star ratings or do you not? I do use star ratings, and I use quarter and half star ratings because I feel like I really think that like if someone offers up a book as like a 3.5 versus if they recommend it as like a 3.75, like I do think there's like nuance in that rating. And I do think, like, for me, I am going to use two different books, but they're both fantasy books. So the first book in the Wheel of Time series is definitely a 3.75 book. Like, it's just such a 3.75 book in this weird way that I don't know how else to describe, but I do feel like utilizing that number expresses my thoughts in a way that like just putting a 3 or a 4 doesn't, because I definitely enjoyed it way more than some books I've given 3 stars, but I definitely did not enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the first book in the Mortal Instruments, City of Bones, the book that started my whole hyperfixation, if you will. So I could not possibly give The Wheel of Time a 4-star rating, but I also absolutely could not give it a 3-star rating. And I think that like, even I also don't own this book anymore, which, unhauling, that's a whole other conversation. But I also gave the first book in the Lunar Chronicles like a 4.25 because it was absolutely not a 5, but it was also absolutely not a 4. Like, I definitely enjoyed it more than other things I've given 4 stars. Like, City of Bones is such a 4-star book to me in this way that I just like don't know how else you could. To me, it just makes perfect sense that it's a 4-star book and The Eye of the World is a 3.75. And I'm trying to I can't think of a 3.5. Actually, yes, I can. Assassin's Apprentice, a 3.5. This was such a 3.5 book. Like, I definitely enjoyed Robert Jordan's writing and the way he built the world more than the way Robin Hobb built her world, at least in this first book. And I just feel like 3.5 versus 3.75 is such, it just expresses my thoughts in a way that I can't explain any other way than just like it is what it is. Okay, so then also just to kind of talk about like what each star rating means to me. Like, 1 star, I don't think I've ever rated a book 1 star. I, as far as right now, have not read a 1-star book. I do DNF pretty frequently, so a 1-star book is not going to be something I hope to ever encounter. A 2-star book is going to be a book that like I don't recommend, but maybe I could possibly see how other people like it. And a 3-star book is the most complicated rating to me. I just feel like there is like, okay, yeah, I can see how people like this, but there's just something in my brain that is not clicking. And I can even think of an example of a book that I gave that rating to, and that's going to be Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, which is a book that I absolutely thought I was going to be given 5 stars because T. Kingfisher is having a moment right now. Now, Nettle and Bone was just like, I can see how people like it, but I'm just not fully connecting to it in this way where like where everybody else seems to be. But I also don't have these like visceral, hateful reactions to it or like think it's terrible like I kind of did with Legends and Lattes, which was a 2-star book for me because, as we'll get into future questions here, like I just think Legends and Lattes was so pointless. And I want to read books that I feel like the author is trying to make a point. I've come to realize that. So that was a lot for question 1, but I do feel like that's such an involved question. Like, how do you rate books? So that is my answer. Oh, and a 5-star book. Sorry, I didn't even move on from 3 stars. So 4-star is like I enjoyed so much of this book, but like objectively, I can see like how it's not for everybody, or even maybe me myself, like I have a couple critiques of it, but like not enough to lower it below a 4, not even a 3.75. A 5-star book to me is complete perfection, wouldn't change one word in the book, which I want my 5-star to show you that like, to me, that book is like unbeatable. There's just something about that book that is like beyond anything I think I could ever write and beyond and like I would recommend it above everything else on my shelf. And we're gonna talk about some 5-star books here in some future questions. The next question is, how do you approach reviewing your books? Like, are you emotional? Are you enjoyment? Like, are you analytical? And I guess for me, I would have to say I'm like all of the above. I do find myself like as I'm reading, kind of comparing what I'm reading to things I've read in the past, especially lately, because the more and more I read, I just think it's natural for you to do that. I also think I'm focused on enjoyment. Like the more enjoyment I'm getting, the less critical I'm being, which I think is a common factor with people. Like if I'm just having a good time, then I'm not going to be thinking as critically. But if you as the author can also get me to kind of like disengage with my critical thinking, or even I don't know, like I think the critical thinking, it's a whole conversation lately, and Mari has great videos about it, but I do think you can hyper enjoy something and be critical of it at the same time. Like I would have tons of criticisms for all the Shadowhunter books, but I also know that subjectively to me they are like some of my favorite books ever because of I don't know how to put it into words exactly. I do think I'm enjoyment over anything else. Like if I'm just like, okay, am I enjoying, like I'm constantly like, am I enjoying this, am I enjoying this, and if I'm not enjoying it, I'm gonna stop reading it. And that's how I've tried to not DNF so far this year, and it has not worked in my favor. And I will be going back to I think there's like a DNF and there's also like a not right now option. And I think that I want to say it was like Books with Brittany. I'm pretty sure she said it in I don't know what video, but she definitely said that like she will read something, DNF it, pick it up later, and it'll become like her favorite thing. So I think that's fantastic. And I think that like I am also that type of reader. I can't think of any examples of any books right now off the top of my head, but I'm hoping that that's going to happen to me in the future with like the First Law series, which was in my worst books. I would love to change my own opinion on a book based off of the time I read it. But to go back to the actual question, I'm definitely enjoyment first, enjoyment, emotions, and then there is some critical thinking in there, but I do think the enjoyment and the emotions kind of like overshadow the critical thinking sometimes. The next question is a book or the books that made you into a reader. And I have absolutely vivid memories of going to the library and checking out like the Magic Treehouse books and all of the Hank the Cowdog books, and the Hank the Cowdog books, like because my mother used to tell me that the man who wrote those was like friends with my grandfather, so I just like felt this weird like need to read those. And then also I have very vivid memories of reading The Giver by Lois Lowry, which is a book that I don't currently own. I did own the box set and I let somebody borrow it, and I have yet to see it again. I do think that that is a book everyone should read at least once in their life, because I think that it is a fantastic example of re-evaluating what you have always thought to be true. Highly, highly, highly recommend The Giver. If you've never read The Giver, highly recommend it. I read those in like elementary, middle school. I think I kind of maybe read some of the Unfortunate Events books, but not. I vividly remember reading lots of Magic Treehouse books. Like they were so easy to read, so I read like a ton of them so that I could get the points from the library or whatever. But of course, the book that got me back into reading, as I said, is your girl Cassandra Clare. Like she is the number one reason that I am making my first YouTube video was like a Shadowhunter video, and I have continuously talked about her books like ever since 2020. That's the third question. Now the fourth question is, do you have a genre? Is it niche or niche? I'm gonna say niche because I just think that's more fun. I would say that the genre obviously you can see from my shelf, the genre that I read the most is definitely fantasy, but I also really like contemporary, hard-hitting stuff. But mystery, I would say mystery is probably my second favorite genre, even though I hardly ever read it. And also romance. Like I would probably say like fantasy, mystery, romance, and like I love those three things together. Like I just love all that together. I mean, I would like to become more of an omnivore who reads all genres and can like recommend like every single like the best books to read in each genre. Like I would love to do that, but I definitely know for a fact that like the romance, like I definitely got into that when I don't know what year it was, but when I first read Get a Life, Chloe Brown, that was absolutely life-changing. Like I loved that book, and I was like, oh, now I want to read every single contemporary romance. Like this is so fun. I would also say that like my preferred genre is like the urban fantasy or like the portal fantasy. Like our world with a little bit of magic is like my absolute favorite. And there's been this whole conversation on YouTube where I was trying to make like my own separate video talking about like all the epic fantasy people are like, where is it going? It's dying. Like it's all about romantasy. And I'm like, no, urban fantasy is the thing that's actually dying, because I don't feel like we've seen any new urban fantasy authors like in years, and it's so tragic. But that's a whole other topic that I could do a whole other video on that, and I might. The next question is, are you more of a character-driven reader or a plot-driven reader? And I absolutely, a few years ago, would have said that I'm a plot-driven reader, but the more I have read, the more I have learned that that is not true, and that if you get me to love your characters, I will die for them. Like, I will be obsessed with characters. Like, if I love the characters, like, that is my absolute favorite reading experience. But I also think I'm selfish in that I want you to give me a good plot, good characters, good themes, good writing. Like, I want you to give me all of it, and you are not going to get a 5-star rating from me if you do not provide all of those things, right? So if you can get me to love your characters, then I'm obsessed. But like I said, I do want it all. Like, if you're gonna get a 5-star from me, I need it all. But if you give me like really good characters that I get attached to and like a really good plot, you probably get a 4-star. If you give me really good characters and really good writing, you'll probably get a 4-star. So, you know, maybe even a 4.5. Okay, the next question is a book that I am going to probably mention multiple times or say multiple times in this video. The next question is a book that you love so much, like even if everyone else hates it, like you love it enough for everyone. And for me, it was the easiest name to make up with. It's The Diviners by Luba Bray. I haven't talked about this in so many videos, and like I feel like I'm not being myself, because this is my number one. This book itself is probably my favorite book I have ever read in my life, and it's just I don't know how to describe. I don't have a word. Like, when you talk about, like, when I say that I want a good plot, good writing, good character, like good atmosphere, like the writing serves the purpose of the story, the writing builds the characters in a fantastic way, it has social commentary about the time period and what was going on with immigration and eugenics, and like, I will never shut up about this, but I will never stop talking about this book. I will recommend this forever and ever and ever and ever. Like, I don't care if every single person on the planet hated this book. You could not convince me it was bad. I don't care what people. The slang is annoying. Evie's annoying as a character. Like, I don't care. The critiques, they go in one ear and out the other. Like, this is the most perfect book for me I've ever read in my life. Okay, and then the next book is a book that, like, I guess, like, if I see, the way this is worded kind of confused me, but it says, like, you just know that, like, if someone else doesn't like this book, then you know that, like, that person is not someone to be getting recommendations from, and, like, you know that, like, things are opposite for you. And my answer for this, like, I think this was my answer, is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which I do know people that don't like this book that I have enjoyed other recommendations from, but I just think that, like, if you tell me you don't like this writing, I know that, like, we have very opposite tastes, specifically when it comes to writing. Like, but I also don't know that I've ever seen a negative review saying that the writing in this book is bad. The writing in this book is next level shit. So I do think, but I don't know, I just think, like, if someone gives a bad review to this book, like, I know that, like, me and you probably have very different taste, and I do think that this is a very specific style, and I do think this book, like, is a good litmus test for, like, oh, okay, like, I love this book. So if you also love this book, like, please come to my channel, and please, you know, the author himself, like, we're not here to talk about all that. I know there are concerns there with a lot of things, but the writing in this book, as well as the character stuff in this book, I think the writing and the characters and stuff, like, this is a 5-star book for me. Maybe on a reread I would drop it to, like, not consider it absolute perfection, but as of my first read, I absolutely love this book, and I think it's such a good book. If someone says they don't like how this is written, or they don't like this book, or they don't like Kvothe as a character, I kind of think, like, okay, so, like, I don't think we're looking for the same things in our books. The next question is, what books do you keep in your trash pocket? And for me, I had to think about this one for a while, because I was like, I don't really have, like, I don't feel guilt in enjoying things, but this is the one, okay? This Shatter Me series, I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. I know, and again, something I constantly see negative reviews for, but I think I gave most of the books in the series, like, a 4-star, so, like, I definitely don't think it's perfect, but I do think that Tahereh Mafi has a writing style unlike anything I've ever read, and I do think that her characters are fascinating, especially the first three, even the last 4, 5, 6, like, I do think they're still good, and I do think they're worth a read, and I think, like, some plot stuff is interesting, but there is some serious lack of world building in this series, and there's some serious, like, lack of just, like, thinking about the consequences of what your girl set up, and you know, I kind of just feel like the plot of this series just kind of really, she just really was like just pulling a lot of shit out of her ass, but somehow in an enjoyable way. Somehow she was just like, what can I do next? Like, let's just, it was like kind of wacky, and I definitely, like, I get why people hate this. I get it, but I also am like, but have you ever read anything like this? Like, genuine question. So I have to give credit where credit is due. And I did read all 6 books in a very quick manner and not hate my experience. Like, I actually think that there's some fantastic commentary about owning who you are as a person in this series, which I've also come to realize through my prep in this video. I've come to realize that like owning who you are as a person is like a huge theme that I enjoy in books that I will continue to discuss as we go on here. Okay, the next question is, do you have any deal breakers in the books that you read? And I instantly thought of this one. And it's when someone describes a book as no plot, just vibes, which I do think, like, those are like the biggest anti-buzzwords. Like, if you tell me there's no plot, I have no desire to read the book, because like, why should I care about what's going on with anybody if there's no plot? And there are 3 books that came to mind for this, and I do. So I think the most beloved of these things, actually no, there's 2 that are very beloved, and it's The Night Circus. Okay, The Night Circus is, I'm so sorry, Sam, no plot, just vibes. And actually I think I just remembered Sam and Mari both love this book, but I associate this book the most with Hannah from A Clockwork Reader. But I do think that book is no plot, just vibes. I mean, there is some semblance of a plot. Again, the way people describe that book and how they feel like they're entranced and transported and just like immersed in a whole other world. When I heard that, I was like, I want that so bad. I want to experience that more than anything on this earth. And when I read that book, I did not experience that whatsoever. However, when I read The Name of the Wind, I experienced that. When people say this book transported me, immersed me, had me feeling like I was living another life, like, to me, that's The Name of the Wind. The Night Circus, sorry, not for me. Legends and Oddities, which I already discussed, like, again, it's no plot. I mean, there is a plot, but it's a plot I don't care about, because I already struggle with high fantasy, as I kind of mentioned how I prefer the urban setting to the high fantasy. So I just prefer urban stuff. Like, I just do. I just think that like having one foot in the real world is just more fun. The last book is a 4-book series. It's The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I keep looking up like, what can I read that is like The Raven Boys, because I read all 4 of those books and I loved the idea of them, but I'm like, there's just something in this series that is missing. Like, and I just think like I just can imagine a world in which there's someone who like is inspired by The Raven Boys and gives me what I actually want from The Raven Boys. Like, I mean, an East Coast like mythological Welsh telling with like ley lines and magic and like supernatural, like, and there's a gang, like, it's just exactly what I want to read. But the actual books of what we have for that series are not my favorite. I think I gave all the books 4 stars, but like, honestly, the first 2, I did enjoy the first 2 a lot, but I think the last 2 were kind of what had me like, oh, it's not really giving what I wanted to give. Those are my deal breakers. Okay, the next question is, what do you look for in writing? And as I was like coming up in my head with my answer to this, I was like, okay, and I've already said before, like, I'm selfish. I want it all. I want the writing, the characters, the plot. But I do think that like writing and characters have come to mean the most to me. And I think that there are very important ways that you can utilize your writing to express character. I think that this book does a fantastic example of your main character's inner monologue that is absolutely fabulous. So I have gathered some examples. Okay, so I already mentioned Evie O'Neill specifically in the first book. I think that there's such good writing. And like I also kind of mentioned with this, I wasn't going to bring this up again, but I do think that Tahira Mafi explores her characters with her writing in a very good way, where you understand her characters. Hate them or love them, I think you have a strong reaction because you understand her characters. Okay, next we have Jane Eyre. Probably my favorite female lead of any book. Like, there are specific wording in here and lines in here that that just make you really sympathize with his character. And then of course our main character Vasya from The Bear and the Nightingale, there's a specific line towards the end of the book about having agency. Just thought of another one. Okay, so Vasya from The Bear and the Nightingale, having your agency, talking about how things need to be your own decision. There's specific writing in here that is absolutely fabulous that you should discover for yourself. Rin as a character from the Poppy War, absolutely fantastic way to use writing to get deeper into your characters. I think that's, the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm like, yeah, I have to be a character-driven reader. There's a, I don't want to move the Strange Dreamer book, but there's a specific line in Strange Dreamer that's like, when the library wants to capture a boy, we let him keep him. That line in Strange Dreamer is such a good line, and it shows there's just like such good writing for developing the character. And finally, Evelyn Hugo is a very complicated, very complex character that I think is so well written, and the writing shows her character, like, it's just such a nuanced way to look at her. This is one of the most popular books like ever, so I'm not saying much new here, but all those other books, like, and I'm just, all those are female authors. I was trying to think, as I was like thinking through all this, I was like, is there any man who has written a character that I have like loved? And as of this moment, I cannot think of anybody. So that is why I can't think of any guy who's written a female. I know a lot of people love Vin from Mistborn, but I'm gonna take Ren over Vin any day. Like, this is probably one of my most annotated books ever. So that's what I look for. I look for you to use your writing to get me to be in the head of your characters and sympathize with your characters. And even if I completely disagree with their actions, I understand their motivations. Okay, the next question is, how do you decide what to read? And I would love to get some suggestions on this because I have no clue. I spent an entire Sunday listening to the first 5 minutes of every single Libby sample of like every book I want to read on my Goodreads. So, and then I descended into insanity. So I would love tips and tricks on how to decide what to read. I do think that taught me that like I'm gonna need more than 5 minutes to determine what to read. I love what Mari Nez said, like what I'm reading now is even a question, because same. I have access to almost any book, therefore I'm overwhelmed all the time. I do think that certain booktubers who no longer post used to be like fantastic ways to get recommendations, and I don't really have this anymore. So that's why we love this tag. That's why this tag is so helpful. But yeah, I would love tips and tricks on how to determine what the hell to read next. And the next question is, where do you get inspiration for booktube content? And to be honest, like I haven't posted much booktube content. I feel like, again, the vlogs are what is like everybody seems to be wanting, and I absolutely hate filming multiple clips and having to edit multiple clips and splice them together, and honestly my life is just not that interesting. So I would love to do a reading experience, but I fall similar to what Marina said. Like, I just don't have the like mood capacity to read 5 books that are the same thing. I was thinking of doing like a reading 7 different genres in 7 days, possibly, but again, all I would do was be coming in here to update my thoughts on the book, and I feel like I want to bring back reviews. I want reviews to become more of a staple, and I also feel like I need to search reviews for my favorite books in order to help me find the booktubers that I love. I do think that would really help. I would love for reviews to come back. I would love for tags to come back. That's why I'm participating in this tag and hoping that like tons of other people participate in the tag, so that the people who are on YouTube like can find me and we can, you know, recommend stuff to each other. Okay, the next question is, I'm going to repeat the answer. If you could make any book go viral, what book would it be? And surprising no one, I'm gonna say The Diviners by Libba Bray, and I already went over why. But this would be a fantastic television show on HBO. Like, I really think, I remember hearing that this got picked up by the people who produced Gossip Girl, and while I do think that like it could work, I really think that like whoever like wrote and produced American Horror Story, that's who needs to pick this up. Like, this would absolutely kill as like a horror story, American Horror Story like plot line. Like, even if they took like just a few examples from this, like honestly, like this should be given its own TV show. Like, this would be, oh, I wish this had. If you are a fellow Cassandra Clare lover, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you haven't read this. Like, this is for the Cassandra Clare girls, okay? Cassandra Clare's out here with 2 million ratings on City of Bones, and like, love that for her. Obviously, like, I supported her through a lot of her career, and she was there for me in COVID times. But Libba Bray is like objectively a better writer, in my opinion. Also, like our current political climate, like this is the 1920s where prohibition was a thing and they're trying to take away people's rights, and there's just so much good commentary. Like I genuinely think that like this would be this is such an important book that I think should be read by like everybody, especially I think we could all learn from the horrors of our past, but I especially think Republicans need to read this book. All right, and then finally, the last question is booktubers that you believe have similar taste to yours. Now, I have yet to find someone that every recommendation they give me is a hit, but I do think the first two that come to mind are Hannah from A Clockwork Reader and Emma Books, who Emma no longer posts. But I do think that like for the most part, especially if both of them like something, I know I'm gonna like it, because I think Hannah's more character driven and Emma's more plot driven. So if we have both of those things and they both like that book, then I know I'm gonna like it. Because like there's definitely things that Hannah liked but I didn't, and then me and Emma don't like it, but also me and Hannah don't. So those are like the two that come to mind. But I more recently have discovered Brittany from Books with Brittany. I think she is really into like the more flowery writing stuff, and I'm into that. Not necessarily flowery, but I just think like more polished prose. Like I just think like just a little bit more. She seems to have those kind of like more standards. I would also say Sarah without an H, but also that's just because I know she loves like Strange the Dreamer and The Diviners and Nevermore, a series that honestly this should also, like if I could blow up another thing, like I would also blow this up. Okay, this is a fantastic book. Sarah without an H, Literature Science Alliance, and I guess kind of Thoughts on Tomes. And I know Marinez, like I want to read more of like their favorite, like Marinez and Sam's Fair. I need to read more of their favorites. Like I need to read Uprooted for Sam, and I need to read the Fairyland series for Mari. I know that I did love Covering with Apples by Catherine Valente, so I'm hopeful that I will also have the Fairyland series. Like from what I hear about it, I really think I'm gonna like it, but I need to actually read it to know for sure. And I know we didn't like mention, like the question was not who are your opposites, but I'm so sorry, Murphy, but Murphy Napier, for some reason, like the last time she posted her favorite series, I was like, I have DNF'd or low rated almost every single one of these series. And Murphy Napier is the reason that I know BookTube exists. So we have to put the respect on that. But when it comes to me getting a book recommendation, I'm so sorry, Murph. Like I think you and me could do our own opposites book club. I do think that from what I have read that she's recommended, other than I know The Name of the Wind we both love, I'm trying to think. So far, I've enjoyed The Wheel of Time. Yeah, her more recent stuff, her more recent favorites, like I have not read them all, but the ones I have read, I was like, oh, I like gave that 2 stars, or I DNF'd it. So and I do feel like she's very well known. So I feel like me pointing myself out as an opposite is just like a good indicator for the people who love her videos and stuff. I do think there's a lot of people who also follow her that are opposites, and like we all love Misa Murph. Okay, actually, but she reviews so well because she was also talking about Cassandra Clare years ago and how she didn't like it and the reasons that she didn't like it, and then that caused me to pick up Cassandra Clare books. So I will always be appreciative of her and her channel and her letting me know BookTube exists. Like she didn't let me, she just posted on BookTube and then I found her. We gotta put the respect out there for that, but just know me and her seem to be on opposite sides of what we enjoy. I would love to examine what we both enjoy and if there's any themes there, but yes. So that concludes this tag. I've been recording for way too long and it's like 10 o'clock at night. So I'm gonna go to bed, but I will leave my Instagram, Goodreads. That's it. Those 2 things will be in the description if you'd like to check them out. Otherwise, have a great day. Bye.